I'm currently writing some scripts, and I'm finding these tiny dynamics of selecting words and the amount of words per panel. Let's say, let's choose the 9 panel per page standard. If you use that as a standard, how many words is too much or is appropriate for each panel? I have found that it changes in the superhero comic books, because sometimes in superhero comic books you need that dialogue to develop the story and understand what's happening. But I don't know, and in Spanish and in English, I think there's a difference in the case of the amount of words. But how do you select the words per panel? Do you select the shape of the panels?
I was told once that I don't know if it's through Marvel, but your bubble shouldn't have more than 4 sentences in a bubble.
No more than 4 sentences.
No more than 4. But I mean, they do go over. But to me, I mean, when I do stuff, if it's my own book, it really comes down to how much would I want to read in that panel. And I've got raging ADD, so I always go picture first when I read comics, and then it's reading secondary. And I'm one of those guys where if it's a lot of words in the balloon, I'll admit I don't read that balloon. I get lazy and I like. But sometimes you have to use that. If you read a Sandman book or a Neil Gaiman book, it's a shitload of words in that thing, and it's not my fault I'm a lazy ass and don't want to read all those words, but I know people who've read those words and they're the most beautiful words on earth, so they can quote that stuff. And I've got friends who can do that left and right with stuff. You can't sit there and go, well, they're not going to want to see this, they're not going to want to read that, they're not going to, otherwise you'll pick your book apart and you won't ever make a book. So just make it the way you would want to read it, and then let them decide if it was too much or not. That's my advice. It's the same, whether it's 9 panels or, I know panels. I remember Mark Waid and Waringo did that issue of Fantastic Four where Franklin is sitting on the floor with his blocks, and out of the whole panel he just says Doom, and it was such a huge. It was like hitting a bass drum, Doom, and any other words in that panel would have screwed that panel up. So it's really, you can't think of it as story and art. When I wrote this script was really tight for Kenny to draw. I mean, because I drew it first, and then when I write, I just describe whatever's on that page I drew. I don't just sit there and go, that one page one setting is. I can't do that. I start in the middle of a story and I work sideways. It's the worst thing to do, and I don't start from the beginning to end. I go to my favorite scene and I write that, I draw it out, and then I go, well, how do I get to this point now? I got to get to this cool scene I want to do. So I don't want to call it bullshit, but I just carry it to that point. And sometimes that cool moment's the beginning, sometimes in the middle, sometimes it's the finale. In this book, the coolest moment for me, there were a few of them, but I remember the first one was them carrying the thing to Calle San Sebastian. That these guys would get. To me, it was like, it's such a goofy, stupid sign of manhood. But I remember drawing that whole scene out. That was the first page I drew was that. And then it was the Chupacabra, and how can we be sympathetic towards them? The Mole Man was a big thing. So I try to go towards that moment.
So you don't work like in trying to choosing the amount of panels per page, or even what kind of events in the page?
I guess my students ask me all the time, how do you do panels? I cannot explain that at all. I know I have a scene in my head, and I just read so many comic books that I know how that would float, how that would show. It's frustrating to explain.
Is it about timing, maybe? It's about timing?
No, because I know this scene will get me there in 4 panels, but if I go 6 panels, I can stretch it out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I always like, most of my books are talking head books. I don't have those big scenes. In Chupacabra, I kind of have those scenes. Mm-hmm. But I still write it like it's sort of true story. I just see the whole page as it is right in my head, you know? like meaty panels. Do you just to go, this would be good at flip, or you just I draw the boxes.
The thing is that I come from the writing experience,
but that's good though.
And I sometimes try to picture the whole page and the flow of the panels, but sometimes I just choose, I don't know, 6 panels and let's do this. And maybe the cliffhanger technique in which the 6th panel or the last panel will lead you to the turning the page and then a boom.
I can tell you why I use a circle and a stick figure, and I can tell you why I like to have only 4 lines of dialogue in it, and I can tell you why I put a thought bubble here. I can never explain how I make panels, because it's the first thing that pops in my head, and it's like there's no thought that goes in it. I just go, if I was going to draw this scene taking place between me and you, if I had paper here, I don't know if I'll use the back of this. If I was doing this scene of me talking to a guy about panels and why, and maybe this is because I do comic strips also. And in comic strips, you got to think, you only have a limited space, so you have to divide it up. But the first thing I do when I write is I do this. There's the page. Okay. And I do this over and over again. It's almost until I think it looks like it. Okay, now, since it's you and me talking, and I don't know how to explain something, okay, it would go like this, like this, and then like this. And it depends on what kind of payoff I want in that scene. So in my head I'm thinking, all right, well I want to establish, you know, you talking with me. And I just use these stick figures. And then, you know, maybe there's Amelia with the camera behind, you know, in the foreground. So the person knows that we're being interviewed. Okay. So I don't even draw any details. If it's a comic shop, I'll put some books in the back, whatever. Now, this will set up, so I have a question. When you do your books, how do you do your panels?
Maybe some random.
And then here, this would be my thoughts going, I get asked this a lot. Okay. So this sets up that. And then, I know that the first thought that comes to mind is that I usually end up here looking stupid because I don't know what to say about it. Okay, so it could be 4 panels of me just going blink, and in the dialogue bubbles will say, and when I get asked this, my reaction's always the same. And I would leave this blank. How the hell do I know? And then I would maybe do a thing of my comic books, my pages and my comic strip pages, saying panels. I deal with panels all the time, and I do. That's the first step. It's like telling a fireman, at what point do you put your boots on? They go, no, the bell rings, put our boots on. That's what you do. Okay? They don't put any thought into it. So I never put thought into how the panels flow. And then this could be me trying to BS you and say, well, you know, it's a very complicated procedure. I like to lock myself in the cave for 3 days, and then I would have Amelia going, that's complete bullshit. I've seen it work. Yeah, and that would be my page. So I put more thought into what I was going to say in those panels than what the boxes were, because I've read so many comic books that I know everything's been done. You know, Neil Adams does those panels where they kind of looks like you're kind of like spiraling down the page and stuff like that. Okay. He probably didn't even think about that. He read the script and went, "Oh, this would be cool if you just spiral the reader down." The panels are our cameras, and we don't think of that.
So it's more about the feeling and the essence of the narration.
Yeah. Why would
Amelia
do a lower shot that he just did and then come up and go to you? Okay, he doesn't think about that because Emilio's thinking behind the camera, how would I want to see this? And he don't stop and go like, well, when I go into the store, I'll look down at the work and go up, and I'll, you know, he's just doing whatever he thinks is the most interesting shot. Panels, and I don't know if anyone else says they put a lot of thought in their panels, they're completely bullshitting you and trying to look like, well, it's a very difficult thing to do in comics. Or they don't put any thought into it at all. And I would relate more to the guy who doesn't put any thought into it at all, you know. But I will go back, once the page is done, I really look at it and go, okay, how did that flow? And maybe I'll think, instead of doing one wide shot, I'll do 3 shots that split this panel up and make your eye go across. It looks like it's more of a movie camera. So,
but you
You
have
tinker
to.
with it.
You do have to think about the amount of pages in terms of a publication for, I don't know, Marvel comics. You know, they give you an exact no exact kind of amount of pages, and they say don't pass.
It's 24 pages, so I'm writing. I forget how that works. I think I've always written 24 pages, which is weird because there's ads. But I write until either. This is how frustrated I am with Marvel. It can be with me. I'll sit down and write. I'll write. And there's a lot of times where I go, I'll have 2 page 12s by mistake on my script, and Alejandro will say, "Oh, by the way, we have 2 page 12s. We have to give it up a page." And then that's when it's really tough for me when I have to delete a page. Because I've already invested so much in these pages that to remove one now is like killing one of your kids, you know. But I don't think about that stuff, no.
Got it.
God, no.
It's just that I have read some examples of scripts and I don't know, the book of Will Eisner on comics and they
he's
just
better
give you
than I am. Will Eisner way better than I am. I hope to God that Will Eisner thought more about his panels than I do, because he could do buildings and he could do cars. He can play with it way more. He has many more options other than being dead. He's got more options than I have on how to present that page. I have my talent. My talent goes until there's a building or an interior or a car. I'm golden. If I have a story called Spider-Man in Nowhereville, then I can draw that book. But I can't draw buildings and windows and shit like that.
I have one last question for you. So, in order to give the opportunity to other people, do you consider yourself more as a writer or as an illustrator?
I'm a cartoonist. That's both. I'm a storyteller. Cartoonist. If you want the hardest job in the world, do a daily syndicated comic strip. One of my best friends in the business does that. He went from a weekly to a daily. He hadn't had a day off in like 3 or 4 years because you have to stay so far ahead. So when I did comic strips, it was every week. I didn't have time to sit there and go like, this should be a horizontal, this should be a vertical. I had a very limited, you think Marvel's limiting on 24 pages. I had 1 box. And there's a lot of stories in my life I'd love to do a true story cartoon on, but there's no room. I had made a mini comic that had a story where I bought a book from Scholastic Book Club, The Rookies. And I was in 5th grade. In one of the scenes, the bad guy in the bank yells out, "You cops think you can get me, common motherfucker." And in 5th grade, I thought, holy cow, fuckers in my book, and I bought this from the school. And I remember getting all heated and going like, holy shit. And I looked at my friend, he goes, "What's the matter?" I went, "Read this." And he goes, "You cops think you can get me, common motherfucker." No way. So after being shocked about motherfucker being in my book, my friend goes, "What's a common?" I don't know. And we were just learning this word. So I go, maybe there's different levels of motherfucker. Like you're a big motherfucker, and you're common. We're nothing. We're common. So my teacher says, "What are you guys talking about back there?" And my friend goes, "Oh, he has a problem with one of the sentences in his book." So she makes me stand up and read the line. I said, "You cops think you can get me, common motherfucker." And I was taken down to the principal's office. They called my dad at work. You never call my dad at work, ever. He comes in, looks at me, and goes, "What are you doing?" I already had red marks from crying so much because Dad's on his way, you know. And I said, "The teacher told me to read this, and I read it, and I'm here, and they called you up, and I'm in trouble." And so he says, "Well, what did you read?" And I go, "It's a line in the book." He goes, "Well, read me a line." I went, "Every time I read this book, I'm in trouble." So I go, "You think you can get me, common motherfuckers?" And I braced for the hit, and my dad grabbed the book and he says, "It's come on, motherfucker." And it was like an epiphany, and I realized, oh my God, it's come on, it's not common, it's come on. And so my dad went off on the principal, saying, "If he bought this book at your school, you answer every question, no matter what it is, I don't care what it is." And then he went and yelled at the teacher, back when you could do that. Now they would hit the alarm, and it'd be a close down, and swap me outside. Lockdown. I remember we used to have these square windows in the door that are rectangular, and I could see her face, and her tears were welling up my dad's finger every now and then to accentuate his point. And then he left, and she came in, and when she came back in, everyone was saying "Common motherfucker" because they all want to know what the deal was. So she had 35 kids who were all going "Motherfucker, common motherfucker," and I bought it from them. I bought it from Scholastic. Stupid motherfuckers.
Thank you very much. I will.
But I did it.
That.
I was able to do like that was 4 comic strips to do that story for that book, and as soon as the idea hits you, you think about how it looks on the page, and I don't know. To me, it happens to me because I'm also an artist, and so I visualize it right away. A writer may not. A writer might think. A writer might see something and say, "I could totally write that scene." But what I look at is when I see something, I go, "I could write and draw that. I know how I would draw that." And I think that's the part where an artist or a writer stumbles. Like if an artist can't draw, can't write, and they can't, turn that off. Turn that off now.
Definitely. That's my handicap right now.
But my
I'm
handicap,
working
like I
with
said, my handicap are buildings and interiors and stuff like that. Guns. I have to draw guns for a cherry hybrid, and they're the dumbest, stupidest guns you've ever seen in life. Like the rubber band guns almost. They're just. I'm trying to do them in silhouette because I'm trying to hide the fact that I can't draw these things. It's just sad. But the story's great. I'm hoping that people like the story more than they won't be going, "Dear Mr. Gill, your guns are horrible."
Thank you very much, man.
And if you can't draw, if that's your stumbling block, how old are you?
29.
Shut up. Go get a book on drawing and learn to draw something.
I will do that.
Yeah.
I will do it.
There's some great art. There's some great comics out there with shitty art.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
I used to think it was Ross Andrew back in the day, but now I like Ross Andrew because it's so goofy looking. I can appreciate it. Or Frank Robbins. Frank Robbins stuff is really weird too.